Hi, everyone. My name is Mia. I'm going to be briefly discussing coaches with poor interpersonal skills. So, interpersonal skills are, in layman's terms, people skills. They're the skills that we use to determine if we want to talk to somebody, if we want to interact with someone. So, some examples of interpersonal skills are verbal communication. You also have nonverbal communication, which consists of eye contact, body language, attitude, tone. Interpersonal skills also consist of what we call emotional intelligence, which is self control. You also have flexibility, accountability, and adaptability. So, someone with stronger interpersonal skills or more equipped with interpersonal skills would be considered more personable, and they would be considered to um, be able to contribute more to whatever environment or situation they're in. So, in terms of coaches with interpersonal skills, being a coach is definitely a diverse role. I think it's one of the few authoritative figures where the individual or the athlete wants to have a relationship with them. So sometimes being a good athlete sometimes is considered to be able to adjust or adapt to a changing or a fast changing environment. And for example, having a coach who is strong in adaptability or whose strong suit is the ability to adapt would only be beneficial for a team of athletes because they would be able to um, convey the necessity for being able to adjust for example, and the means of which you properly adjust and adapt to new settings and changing environments rather through their actions rather than trying to convey that through lecture. So one of the adaptability was one of the more reoccurring themes that I found in my research. One study compared male and female athletes, and it found that female athletes were more manageable, more coachable. They were seen as more intelligent and more mature than male athletes. However, female athletes were also considered to be more personal and more likely to express emotion rather than seeking a solution to a problem. Male athletes were considered to be more assertive and direct. So I think that in a case like this, adaptability is definitely important in terms of dealing with males versus female athletes, because in dealing with females as opposed to males, you would have to adjust your ability to listen and be a compassionate listener. So if you were dealing with a female athlete, you might have to listen to her in order to understand rather than listen to her in order to provide a response. Um, the same study also outlined that coach and athlete relationships that were more negative or marked by negative feedback from the coach, or where the coach was more focused on winning rather than developing the player, or more autocratic. Uh, Athletes in these instances were found to have more high player anxiety, emotional and psychological withdrawal, and the teams were more counterproductive. Another study I found actually outlined the psychological effects of bad coaching or coaches with poor interpersonal skills. And in that particular study, the main effect of coaches with poor interpersonal skills was that the athletes were or had inhibited mental capacity and mental skills. So they lacked mental toughness, and they lacked the ability to concentrate. One of the initiatives I found for combating, I guess, coaches with bad interpersonal skills was something called coaching with compassion. And it's defined as an interpersonal process, and it's for the means of strength building. So its goals or its aims are to solely identify the strengths of athletes rather than considering their weaknesses. Another initiative that I found was called the Educational Program of Strengthening Coach Athlete Interpersonal Relationships in Individual Youth Sport. So it was a 6-month study, and it was a very small sample size. There were only 10 coaches involved. The coaches were assessed by a psychologist before and after the 6 months. So before the 6-month program, they were assessed to find which areas they could work on as coaches. And that made the 6-month program personalized for them. So it had uh, workshops, detailed videos, individual consultations, and yeah. So at the end of the 6 months, the coaches were reevaluated again, and it was found that the 6-month specialized program did in fact help them with their own personal emotional intelligence, their motivational skills, which eventually would help their athletes. Um, and the 6-month program, I think, does sound slightly inconvenient, but I think it's definitely a step in the right direction in making sure that the people who are coaching athletes are properly coached themselves. So, thank you for listening. Bye bye.